Hey, welcome everybody. Rob here for our BSPU call this week. I'm going to share with you quite a few things today that we're doing. It's pretty new, and I don't have massive results as much as I have a lot of work that I've done. You know how that is, especially with content marketing, which is what we're going to talk about today. Oftentimes, what you do when it comes to content marketing and the results tend to follow. So what I'm going to share today is kind of our master plan, if you will, for our content marketing strategy. I'll share my screen in just a minute and go through the various things that we're doing. But so that you know, and probably what you've already thought of yourself, is the idea with content marketing is you want to be able to take a piece of content that you're creating and repurpose it in as many ways as possible. You don't want to have to create multiple pieces of content to use on multiple platforms. So what I've decided to do is have a foundational piece of content, which I'll share with you in just a moment, that then branches out to become additional content pieces that we use on various other platforms. And I'm going to share that with you. I'm actually going to show you those things. I'm going to show you kind of the results and not results as far as people coming to us, but results as far as my taking one piece of content and repurposing it for many, many different platforms. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen. I am going to kill my camera as well, and I'm actually going to dive right in to the whiteboard. So bear with me. Let me go ahead and stop my video as well. Everyone should be able to see my screen really well. Hopefully that is the case. And let me share with you what we're doing as far as our content marketing strategy goes. I'm going to stand up here because I have this beautiful big Surface Pro that I get to write on. So here's what we're doing, and here's kind of the idea. We have one main piece of content, which is, in my case, our podcast. Now, the podcast itself, we're doing on Zoom. We're stripping out the audio of the podcast so that we can put it on iTunes and Stitcher and all of the podcast platforms themselves. But we're doing it in video because we want to make sure that we can use the video for a number of different things. So we are taking the video itself and we're using that for our YouTube channel. And I'll show you all of these various pieces in just a second as well. Our YouTube channel is something that I haven't spent much time on. You may remember I was doing some of this about a year ago, and when COVID hit and our studio was shut down, which was our office in California, evidently we were not an essential business. And because of that, we were virtual like many of you are. Which has been a tremendous blessing and I'm grateful for, but it was really putting a kind of a crimp in our content marketing. Well, we've gotten that figured out with some additional team members and a company that's actually helping us. So we're starting with this main piece of content, this video podcast. We're stripping out the audio for the podcast, putting it on all the channels. We're stripping out the video and putting it on YouTube. We're also using parts of the video for our Facebook ads because my podcast itself is called the Publish, Promote, Profit Podcast. I know that's incredibly original, seeing as that's my trademark statement. That's the title of my Wall Street Journal best-selling book. That's now my video podcast and my YouTube. I know that that my originality stuns all of you, but truth be told, when you find something that works, there's no reason for you not to double and triple and quadruple down on it. And that's what we've done. So we're using this Publish, Promote, Profit podcast with the idea being twofold. Number one is we want people to talk about their books and what the content of their books is, as well as what their expertise is. But number two, and that's, you know, fairly pedestrian, right? Everybody does that when somebody writes a book and they have a famous author on TV or on a podcast, then they're talking about the book. No big deal there. What we're doing differently because of who I am and what bestseller publishing does is we're also taking the slant of now tell us How have you used your book to grow your business? What have you done to use your book to grow your authority, to drive leads, to make sales, to make an impact and an income? Now, because of that, and because people are talking about their books in a very positive light, they're saying things like, yes, in the last 3 months, my book has made me $1.4 million in revenue, and here's how it's done that. We're able to strip out pieces of this content as social proof for ads. Okay. Now, why did I just tell you all of that? I told you all of that because I want you to think about the content that you're creating ahead of time so that you can create content that you can use in a number of different ways. The ads themselves are not ads for the podcast. The ads are for bestseller publishing and their additional social proof. So hopefully that is really clear and gets you thinking about how to build out your content in a way that can be repurposed in kind of cool and unique ways. Now, besides that, we're also using the podcast for a number of social media channels. And so that could be, Instagram, and that might be, something that is, a 1-minute video. It could be a picture with, a quote or something like that. We're using it within Facebook groups and making sure that people can see our content within groups themselves. And of course, the ads that I shared, but also things like, we haven't done this yet. This is the only part that we haven't done yet, but Facebook and YouTube both allow you to go live with a live video that you're running from YouTube, or of course a Facebook Live itself. And so we have the ability to do that, but we haven't 100% figured that out. And regarding social media, we also have Twitter as far as using like specific quotes from the authors and that kind of thing. So this one video podcast has allowed us to repurpose this content in a number of different ways. Oh, I forgot one, and that is a blog on our website. So we're taking this video that we're doing right out of the gate, and we're creating a written blog from it, which also, by the way, are Facebook, not just Facebook ads, but Facebook posts. And that could just say social media posts, right? So it could be something here as well. We want to create not just video and audio, but we want to create the written word from it. Now that takes some additional work and some focus, but because we're starting with video itself, we're able then to distill it into audio and into the written word and use all of those pieces in a number of different ways and on a number of different channels. Now, each one of these channels, as we're starting, and this is always discouraging, and it's especially discouraging for me, to be quite honest, because I have a large email list. By the way, we have not emailed one person about this yet, because we want to get a bunch in the can, and we want to begin, really, getting good at all of this. But we will start also sending these to our email list for additional content, right? Just to warm people up, give people something that they can be educated from, can learn from, and can see the value in finally finishing their book or writing their book to begin with. So from this one video podcast that we're doing on Zoom, just a simple Zoom call, exactly like you guys know how to do, exactly like we're on right now. Let me go back to my video. We're then stripping out for all of these different things. Now, let me show you what some of those things actually look like as they're being done. So this is, of course, the podcast itself. It's brand new, but I've been doing quite a few recordings. I did 2 new recordings yesterday, and are bringing people on and doing our very best to introduce people to the idea of writing a book. By the way, I'm going to post in the Facebook group an opportunity for you guys to be on the podcast if you want to. I prefer that you have your book completed and your book already be doing something for you. If your book isn't done yet, then it's probably not the best podcast for you until your book is completed. But if your book is done and you're seeing some results from that book, then I'd love to talk to you. And remember, I want to talk to you about two things. Number one thing I want to talk to you about is your expertise and the book and all the ways that you serve mankind. And number two is, how is the book serving you? And those are the two things in about a 25 to 35 minute podcast that we're doing. So I'd love to have you on it. I will post a link in the bestseller mastermind page right where we just were, where the new book, The Expert's Cure, is out. So I'd love for you to be on the podcast again if you kind of meet those criteria. And I'll post a link so you can fill in all your information and we can get you set up. So it starts here with this podcast. The audio is stripped out. It's downloaded. It's sent to not just Apple, but Stitcher and all the other places. I already have one review. God knows how I got that review. I have no idea who this person is, but somebody gave me a 5-star review and I'm grateful for it. I will make a push for downloads and reviews from all of you, as well as my email list in the next coming weeks. At the moment, I haven't been pushing to do that, but I will. And I want to make this a top-rated podcast, as I would expect you would want for your podcast also. Now, from there, we're also putting them on our YouTube channel. This is all brand new. And this is the depressing part that I was getting to. And I don't think I ever finished my sentence. But, look, I mean, some of these are great podcasts. Todd Herman is a Wall Street Journal bestselling author. He's one of the smartest guys around. I got 19 views on this. That's like nothing, right? I see that and I go, oh, it drives me absolutely bananas. But I have such great gold within this podcast that I will strip out pieces of it. I will use that for my ads. I will also use that for emails out to my list. So I'm trying not to be discouraged, and I don't want you to be discouraged, because in the beginning of your podcast, you're going to get very, very few views and reviews of it. Don't worry about that. There will be a tipping point, but the tipping point can only happen if you stick with it, if you're going to do some type of content marketing strategy. Now, what did I also told you? Well, I also told you that we are taking these episodes, right, that we're creating, and we're making blog posts from them. Why? Because some people like to consume their content in a written form. Some people like to consume it in an audio form, and some people love to consume it in video. We want to give all of these people an opportunity to consume it. Now, this is one of the difficult pieces of this. Now, fortunately, I have a writing team that can do many of these things, but what they have to do is they have to take maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different ideas from the podcast itself, and then distill those into maybe a 500 to 1,000 word blog, which can also be a Facebook post. And obviously that can also be an email. So there's several ways you can use the written content. That is the hardest part, is, in my opinion, taking it from the audio or video to the written. But you should do that because people do read your blog post, and this is something that will get categorized by Google. People will comment on it. People are interested in it, etc. And then lastly, as I mentioned to you before, I'm using it for advertisements themselves. So, this is Mark Ryan, and Mark may even be on. He was on our call earlier, but Mark and I did a short interview. And on that short interview, I stripped out a minute of that, where Mark simply talked about how he's used his book and how finally writing a book has made a difference in his business and in his life. And so I can do that with all of these various podcasts that we've done, pieces of it. Just take 1 minute of it out and show somebody that minute and give, a kind of a distillation of what that minute is. And this ad, as I said before, is not going back to my podcast. If you click learn more on this ad, what does it do? It takes people right to my page and says, hey, are you ready to write and publish your book? Fill out an application and get started. And of course, there's more testimonials and case studies and those kinds of things. But if you want to have a 30-minute strategy session with an author coach, then great. You watch this for a minute, you got warmed up to who we are. Maybe that's the 4th one you've watched. and now you're interested in filling out an application. So you can take all of this content and repurpose it in a number of ways. Now, is it easy to do? It's not. If it were easy to do when I started it a year ago, I would have stuck with it. I didn't stick with it because we really got, as I mentioned, really got kind of off, out of sync, because, Cole was, who's my son, is my videographer. He was handling all the social media stuff. We had some real problems with getting everything set up with the video channel, et cetera. And so, we had this long hiatus. I found a team that basically can do all of this. And so besides Cole doing his magic part, I have a team that's actually helping me with the podcast. We're downloading at least 2 a week right now, and we're going to be ramping that up to maybe 3 or 4 a week, because we're also adding in a couple of other elements of people on our team. Oh, by the way, let me mention this. So I mentioned, if any of you are interested in being on the podcast and being featured, that you need to have your book done. And that, while that is true, I want you to know that if your book is just completed and maybe it hasn't even been launched yet, or maybe you haven't seen the kind of results that you're going to see in 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever, then we have Matt and Amy on our team that are doing podcast interviews for this podcast, but they're doing a different slant. My slant is about the income and the impact of the book. Their slant, like Matthew's in particular, because he's our head writer, Matthew's slant is, how did you overcome the challenges of writing your book? What were the challenges? What were your difficulties? And how did you overcome? And how is that meaningful to you? So he's taking a little bit of a different slant on the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast. And Amy's slant is even a little bit more different than that. Her slant is about brand building and how you've used your podcast to tie into your brand, and what is your plan to use your podcast, use your book to, not podcast, but how to use your book to grow your brand. So Amy is about book and brand. Matthew is about books, writing struggles. And of course, I'm the income and impact part of that. Okay. So again, let me just do a quick recap. This is the idea: one piece of content. I do a 30 to 40 minute interview. That interview automatically goes into a Dropbox. When I press record, it automatically goes into a Dropbox folder. From there, I don't do anything. It gets uploaded onto YouTube. It gets changed into Facebook posts, Facebook ads. Cole is, working right now to strip out 1-minute pieces of these and then using them as posts and as ads. The Twitter, of course, is just finding some great quotes, et cetera. Same with Instagram for ads. The email and the blog, that takes a little bit longer because that needs to be a professional writer that strips out the ideas and the concepts and then writes a little bit more about them. Okay. So this is the idea. One piece of content then becomes all of these pieces of content. Now you may look at that and say, Rob, that's a lot. And I don't know that I want to or can do all of that. Completely understand. And maybe that's not, where you're at. But I can tell you, if you're doing a podcast of some kind, then you should do a podcast that you can repurpose the content in as many ways as possible, because you will reach people in those repurposed formats that you would never reach on the podcast itself.